Hello and welcome. This is Jessica with Hack Mankind, and welcome, and thank you for tuning in to Hack Mankind's Business Talks with our founder, Peter Swain. Peter is a digital strategist that helps companies and individuals harness the power of technology. He was one of the first web developers in Europe and has successfully run and exited 3 agencies across the web and digital marketing industry. And today, Peter is going to be diving into how to find your why. Welcome, Peter. Thank you so much, and take it away.
Thanks, Jess. So before I tell everybody how to find your true why, I'm going to tell you why this is so important to you. So I actually have on my arm a tattoo. I got this done my halcyon days of startups. And my tattoo says in Latin, "Op viam inveniam op faciem." So unless you speak a dead language, you don't know what that means. And what that means is I will find a way or make one. And if I can categorize that in a slightly more catchy phrase for you, it means if you push hard enough, you're going to get what you want. And that's true. But that's not what we're talking about today. Because that's also how you get accidentally divorced. It's also how you accidentally have a heart attack. It's also how you accidentally have a stroke. Right? Because pushing as hard as you can at something means you ignore everything else around it. It's a very unhealthy way of achieving your goals. And I say that as somebody that had a stroke 7 years ago. I say that as somebody that is living, breathing, thank God, evidence that pushing is not the right way. So I was lucky enough to get married 8 years ago now. And shortly after that, 3 years after that, the biggest blessing I've ever received occurred in my life, and I had my first child, Olivia, who's now 5. And it wasn't for a few years until I realized how important she was and what it meant that I left the job and left my career and started finding a new path. And it was when I was seeing Joseph McClendon III, one of the people that we've had on our interviews, that I sat and truly tried to understand my true why. So I'm going to tell you a story. It hasn't happened. It's something that I sit and imagine quite regularly. And it's what ties together my impact and my money. Right? They're the 2 things I want. I want impact and money. And what's happened in this story is I'm sitting in a beach house. I think it's in Malibu. We've got waves coming in. It's sunset. I've got an espresso and an orange juice. In my head, I've got a newspaper, but it's probably now an iPad. And I'm listening to the waves. And the door opens and my daughter walks in. And she's makeup streaming down her face. She's obviously been crying. And I ask her what's wrong, is she okay? So she's about 20 by now, so we're like 15 years in the future. And she says she's fine, but she doesn't really want to talk about it. So she goes into her room, and I've got enough money to allow myself to keep a room for her for life. And she has a shower, she gets changed, puts on a big robe, and comes and sits with me on the balcony and listens to the waves. And we don't talk, we just sit and listen to the waves. And then the next morning when we're making breakfast, I say, "What happened, honey? What's wrong? Tell me." And she explains to me that she was out with her boyfriend and they had a huge row. And the boyfriend stormed off, not realizing that he had her phone and her money in her pocket. Now, any 20-year-old girl or older will be able to relate to this story. And I'm not telling something that hasn't statistically happened to almost every single young girl, where they have an argument with a boyfriend over something at the time is life or death, and they storm away. And what happens in this story is my daughter's sitting there crying, sitting on a curb at a bus stop, and a stranger walks past and asks her if she's okay. And instead of doing the wrong thing, instead of trying to take advantage of her, instead of seeing weakness and seeing an opportunity, he uses his phone and calls her a cab. And when the cab arrives, she says, "Where do you want to go?" And she instinctively says my address because she knows that's where she'll be safe. Now, I've just given you the précis version of my story. I can tell you what type of chair I'm sitting in. I can tell you how the orange juice tastes. I can tell you what her robe's made out of. I can tell you every single aspect of that story. Because my belief is that I want to be, my kind of core founding belief is I want to be the best dad I can. Now, by that, I don't want to remove suffering. I want to remove suffering from my daughter's life, but I don't want to remove the challenges from her life. I want her to grow, and I want her to be a capable, amazing, independent young woman. But I also want her to know that no matter what happens, I'll be there for her. And the other side to this story is that stranger. Now, my belief, Jess, and I can't prove it, and it's probably far-fetched if I'm being honest, but my belief is that what we do with Hack Mankind is changing people's lives. Very, very slightly, very subtly, hopefully profoundly for some people. You and I have both received emails and messages from people that have listened to something that from one of our panelists, whether it's Karen or Ed or you or me or Clint or anyone else or Sean, there's so many people on this. And we have genuinely helped them and touched them and reached them at that point where they needed help. So it's not too far-fetched for me to believe that if I can impact that one person, that one person will impact somebody else. And that one person will impact somebody else. So in my head, the stranger that walks past my daughter 15 years from now, 7,000 miles away from where I currently live, will be impacted by what I do. And I need to make sure, whilst my daughter's under my roof, to some degree, I can look after her and care for her and keep her safe. Up till the age of, say, 15, 16, I can probably be the dominant force in keeping her safe. But at 18, 19, 20, 21, I have to accept that I've armed her with the tools she can do it herself. Now, that's not good enough for me, and I think any dad and any mum will understand and agree with what I'm saying. Yes, I want to empower my children, 100%. But am I willing to take the 1% risk that something happens that they can't look after? No, absolutely not. So I need to change that guy that's going to walk past her in 15 years' time. I need to change his mind now for him to do the right thing. For him not to see a beautiful 20-year-old girl and say, hey, why don't you come back to mine for a drink? That's my worst case. My medium case is he just ignores her and carries on walking. I want him to do the right thing, which is say, hey, are you okay? Let me call you a cab. And then carry on walking. So I want to change his mind now. And the reason I tell you that story is that's my true why. I live every minute of my life for that occasion that's going to happen in 15 years' time. I do everything I do in my business. I do everything I do with my clients. I do everything I do with my kids. I do everything I do with Hack Mankind for that one moment in 15 years' time. And I guarantee to anybody listening to this, if you're on push, not pull, when you get to, oh, I've got to do my expenses, or oh, I've got to transcribe a video, or oh, I've got to sit down and write a proposal, I'm not sitting down and doing my expenses. I'm not sitting down and transcribing a video. I'm not sitting down and doing a blog post. I'm not sitting down and doing a proposal. I'm sitting down to save my daughter in 15 years' time. I guarantee you my motivation tops yours every time and twice on Sunday. Because the pull that your true why has on you, and it doesn't have to be some deep, esoteric, fanciful 15-year thing. It can be owning a Ferrari. It can be like Sean Callaghan. It can be having a beach house. And they can change as well. It doesn't have to be something you lock into, but when you identify the thing that's going to make you sing and make you sweat, and as we just talked about, make me get on a Peloton, when you identify that thing that you go, that has to happen. It has to happen. There is no doubt or debate that it has to happen. Everything becomes easy. Everything that you need to do on your minutiae, your day-to-day, becomes super, super simple. Because it's about reaching that true why. So I hope that kind of makes sense. And I hope telling it as a story was acceptable to everyone that hears this. Because I hope you heard the depth of emotion it brings out in me. Like, it literally makes me want to cry. And that's what I want you to find. And as I said, I don't mind if it's owning a Ferrari or climbing Mount Kilimanjaro or driving across America. It doesn't matter. It's what you look inside your heart and you find that makes you want to do what you want to do. And if you can find that, and that's part of my course, Jess, it's actually the first module. It's the very first module. It's the foundation of everything else on our course. It's an 8-week course. It's called 0 to 60 Skills to Digital, where we help people develop a digital business. And the first thing we do is go through this. Because if you lock this in, the next 7 weeks are easy, because you'll get through it to achieve that why. That's it.
So important and so valuable. And so one of my questions with that, Peter, and I know you go a lot more in depth during the course, and I highly recommend the course because I have backstage access and I've already seen it. And but one of the questions, is there something that you can share today with us to get started on? Like, where should we start? Like, how do we find our why? Like, how do we know?
Yeah, often it's the flip of your pain. It's a good place to start.
What do you mean, flip of your pain?
Find the thing that causes you to. So you go through this next exercise called the 5 whys. So you talk about what you don't want to happen, and it's easier because we're programmed for fear and because we're programmed to avoid pain. It's often easier to identify with pain than pleasure. So, for example, my dad, and he might listen to this, so I want to be quite clear. My dad loved me dearly, but my dad believed, because of his upbringing and because he was a child of people that had been in the Second World War. He grew up in a house where they gave each other the constituent parts of a Christmas dinner for presents. So one of my uncles, I had my father, an uncle and an aunt. One of the children would give the potatoes to another child, another kid would give the Brussels sprouts, and another kid would give the turkey, because they couldn't afford presents and food. Right? So he walked into marriage and fatherhood saying that I would never want for anything. And what he missed with love, what he missed is the time and attention that a child truly wants. So I didn't get proximity to my father because my father was traveling. One year he was away for 300 days of the year, and he was on planes for 30 days of the year. So he was in my house 35 days, and the days he was home, he was so tired, he just went to bed to try and get ready to do it again. So if I say, what pains me, why, and so you ask the question, what causes you pain? And you say, Boa. And you go, why? And you answer that, and you say, why? You keep asking yourself why until you literally feel like someone just punched you in the stomach. And you have to get it's like automatic writing. You have to get to the stage where you're literally just answering the question and not thinking about it. And eventually you'll say a sentence like, because my dad was never home. Right? And when you get to that sentence, you feel it. And that's when you know you don't need to go another step deeper, because that's it. That's the true pain that's driving your belief system. Right? Why do I want to achieve this for my daughter? Because I don't feel my dad achieved it for me. Right? And parents always overcompensate one way or the other. If one parent does this, another parent does this. And as I said, I was blessed. The reason I have the confidence to stand in front of this camera, the reason I own this camera, the reason I own a beautiful house is because my dad did all the things he did. So I'm not trying to take away from anything he did. And I am saying this in case he hears it, because I love him dearly and I don't want to hear something else. But he has still, just as I will, shaped that part of my soul. I'll screw my kids up in a different way. Right? That's what we do as parents. And I will overcompensate and screw them up in the opposite way, probably. Who knows? So if you can identify your true pain, you'll often find your driving force is the opposite side of that sentence. So people that have been abused as children will often find the flip sentence of, I want to make sure no child is ever abused. That might be their their thing. People that grow up poor will often find that money is their thing, right? So, and don't be afraid to be shallow. I mean it. Don't be afraid to be shallow. Jess, you and I have spoken about this on other one of our videos, where I've said I wish every person would be honest that they want to lose weight so that their ass looks good in a pair of jeans, right? Because that's true motivation. That's a true motivation. This, oh, I want to live for longer. I want to feel more vitality. No, you don't. You've got no concept of what living longer means. So it's not something you can extrapolate and envisage. I know it's still true, but it's a secondary belief. Right? If you get truly toe up wreck drunk and someone said, why do you want to lose weight? Your answer would be, because I want my ass to look good in these jeans. That would be your answer. That's the truth. Right? And so many people are so afraid to be shallow. They spend their time looking to be deep. And we are both shallow and deep creatures. So find the pain, and you'll often find an opposite sentence, the counterbalance to that, which can drive you forwards.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Peter. Thank you, and thank you for tuning in. Thanks so much for watching and tuning into Hack Mankind's Business Talks, where we come together to learn practical tips and strategies that you can apply in your business right now. So I really look forward to our next call with Peter. Thank you so much, Peter, and we'll catch you real soon.
Thanks, Jess.